Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming back. This is Impact Podcast, and today I have a special treat for you. I have Rick Watkins with me, who was one time a client of ours, and of course, we no longer coach, and Rick has moved on to another coach, but when we met Rick some years ago, Rick was a bantamweight, and Rick was over 60. You were 61 then.
Right at the edge there.
Yeah, right at the edge. So we met Rick and got to know Rick at the gym and everything. And we came to an agreement to go ahead and coach Rick to it was the Nationals that year, wasn't it? Masters Nationals?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about all of that today on Impact.
The Impact.
Living in a memory.
Hey guys, thanks again. Today, like I said, we have Rick Watkins in, and this is really kind of a special thing for me because when we met Rick, Rick and I were kind of the older guys at the gym, and we had a number of other clients at that gym, and of course, we did a lot of traveling, coaching people, that type of thing. And Rick was 61 years old. You were a bantamweight at the time.
Yes.
You had quite a few titles as a bantamweight already under your belt, correct?
Yeah, I competed since about 2012.
Yeah, 2012.
Yeah.
And we talked about that year of putting some more muscle on you. Now, the myth that you cannot gain muscle after 50 or after 60
absolutely not true.
It's just a myth. Now, I want to stop right here now, and this is important for me to say because it's very much out there that I am no longer using steroids other than HRT, and so everybody knows that at this point. It's actually doctor prescribed, thankfully. And I get all my blood work done finally, and I have been keeping up with the urologist and all of the other doctors that I've been going to for my health. But back then, we were using big time, and at least I was. And we kind of took the approach with Rick that he was over 60, so we had to be very conservative. Pretty conservative with the gear, and thankfully Rick was smart enough not to push that beyond his health limits as well. Rick, talk to us about what that was like just back then, because man, we had some crazy times in the gym, and we're going to talk about some of those.
I studied and researched steroids for about 5 years before I ever even started anything. And I knew I was an older guy, and I knew I was a smaller guy, so I always kept to the minimum values of what recommended bro science stuff,
Yeah.
So I was always very, very conservative.
Yeah.
I think my first cycle was just test.
Yeah.
Just some added test.
Yeah.
But putting on muscle after 50, I'd worked out all my life without trainers and basically just stayed about the same. I gained probably 15 pounds a decade.
Oh, wow.
From high school.
Yeah.
But just slow gains, nothing amazing. I wasn't eating right,
Right.
trying to do a magazine workout, with 30 sets by Schwarzenegger or something, with me weighing 140 or something, ridiculous.
Now, how tall are you, though?
I'm 5'5".
5'5". Okay. So when we met, and I'm trying to think, you were bantamweight, and I have your file upstairs in my computer.
Bantamweight, for those that don't know, is 143 1/4.
Yeah, up to 143 1/4.
Up to 143 1/4.
Right. So I think when we met, we had said, hey, man, to have a legitimate shot, we were going to have to put some muscle on it. And so you and I and a number of other guys, and we'll talk about those guys here in a minute, but you and I decided, okay, Rick, if we're going to do this, we have to really strain your system, really put a strain on you, and that meant we were working legs sometimes 3 times a week. Isn't that correct?
At least twice.
At least twice, but there were times where we were doing 3. And now,
my legs always lagged behind my upper body,
Yeah.
so it needed work.
yeah, and I'll be putting some pictures up on the green screen here. Rick has a phenomenal physique, and really, I don't care if you're 40 or 50. At that height, that weight, you actually carry a lot of size, and that was the one thing that always impressed me. I was like, this guy actually has a lot of really good quality muscle, and it wasn't like a lot of the other 60-year-old guys that I'd seen. You know, those guys are kind of really rare, and I say that not blowing smoke up your skirt, so to speak, but I've been in enough shows and seen enough masters competitions where I was like, dude, a lot of these guys carry a lot of body fat up on stage, you know, and and as a matter of fact, just to be quite honest, I was like, I'm not even sure why a lot of these guys are even at this show. You know what I mean? So I was just like, I would never get that. I would never put that package up on stage.
I went to a show one time as a blonde-haired guy that was out of shape. He was holding water. He was holding body fat. He didn't tan, and he was fair-skinned anyway. And it just happened that he was the only person in his weight class.
Oh yeah,
and won first place. It's like something's wrong with the rules here, you know. This guy, and he had a big fan club, you know. It's like his family and everybody cheering, and he looked terrible.
Yeah, but you know what? Every show you go to, and it's like every show you go to, there's that one or two guys that you look at and you're like, oh, bless his heart, man. What, you know, that's my wife over there going, oh, bless his heart. And I'm like, what are you doing here?
Oh, he shouldn't even be there.
You know, and I remember used to looking at guys and going, dude, I want the mirror he's looking at. Because if you can look in that mirror and think you belong on the national stage, I want that mirror. I mean, seriously, and I'm not cutting anybody down, but I also wondered so many times, where are the people telling these guys the truth? Dude, you're not ready. You should not be going. You're not ready. But nobody does.
Friends tell them they look great.
Yeah.
You know, they haven't had an objective evaluation.
Yeah. Or they go into some little small city show and there's two people in it, like you were saying, and then, or, you know, some other small show that qualifies them, and they don't realize what they're in for. I've seen that so many times. I can tell you of a show that I did some time ago. It was when I was younger, and walked in there, and I was 242 pounds even back then. And I tell people all the time, I was like, oh no, I was a far better bodybuilder when I was young than when I was old. I was so beat up and broke down, you know, and all that stuff. But I remember we had a guy that won some little natural show. Yeah. And there were like 6 people in the whole show. It was a natural thing. And he came in the gym. The local paper wrote him up and took a picture. And he had the article posted up there. And he was saying he was going for this show and everything. And I was,
get his pro card.
Yeah, I was like, you do realize this is a national qualifier, right? And he's like, yeah. And everybody's like, oh, he's going to stomp you in the dirt. And I kept telling him, I was like, he will never strip down for weigh-in. He'll never make it. And we all got to weigh in, and I remember he was behind us because, you know, they were taking back then, they were just taking you in, and it wasn't by class or anything like that. And I'm not sure a lot of shows do that, but you were just coming in and you were weighing. Yeah. And he was not too far behind me. And I remember stripping down and getting up on the scale, and the dude was like 242. And I looked back and the dude was gone. He left, didn't even show up for the show. So, and actually, the crazy thing is, I actually never saw him in the gym again. Yeah, I'm sure he went somewhere else, but I never saw him in the gym again. So you were
the other thing I see is that people who are in decent shape, and they've had no posing coaching, and they get up and do these weird poses that look stupid and.
Oh man,
I see that sometimes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. And it's even worse. You know, the higher you go and you don't know how to pose,
it really stands out.
Yeah, it stands out. Now the bad thing is like for me, like when I would get up on stage, especially towards the end of my bodybuilding days, you know, I had so much nerve damage on my left side, I couldn't hit poses the way they were supposed to, and quite honestly, full disclosure, I was actually shocked I won my pro card because I was like, my whole left side doesn't work.
Well, you look good.
But I mean, seriously, I was on my left side, and it feels so funny and unnatural, and I can't, but anyway, it was crazy. So let's go to this. So we met, we started training. And the one thing I always loved about when you and I would train together, we would bring in a guy named Matthias Maines, who was maybe one of the strongest guys I've ever seen.
Power lifter and
pound for pound, maybe one of the strongest guys I've ever seen. Watching that guy take a 45 on each side, then put a 25 in the middle of that at the end of those, and then loading that bar with 45s again. And then going in there and picking it up, holding that one first 45 like that and deadlifting it. I had never seen that in my life. And I remember going, dude, this guy is insanely strong, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens? He tears both quads off the bone.
At the same time.
A
double quad tear. How rare is that?
Oh, yeah, right? And I've told that story. And I remember because I remember when he got done and got done with his therapy, and I told he asked us to coach him, and I told him, I was like, I mean, we'll be a part of your therapy, we'll be a part of that, and we had him on stage in 1 year from that. That
in
was
bodybuilding.
In bodybuilding,
yeah.
I don't,
Did he ever power lift after that?
I don't know.
Because that's so dangerous.
I think he actually did. Wow. Yeah, he did because and of course, I know he's moved out of the state. I'm not sure where he is. So, Matthias, if you see this, contact us, man. We'd love to have you on the podcast. It'd be a great interview. Yeah, it would be a great interview because, dude, he's one of those naturally really good-looking, gifted guys. And I mean, when I'm talking about strong, I've never seen grip strength like that. I mean, I don't care who it is. I've never seen that before. I mean, just to pinch that 45 and deadlift it, I was like. But here's the issue. We decided, okay, we're going to do, I think we did legs together because we realized, okay, if we're going to put weight on you, real weight, even back then I was very responsible. I tried to be very responsible with the gear usage, except for myself, but with my clients, I did try to keep, their health in mind. I had run into so many guys that were just taking such massive amounts of stuff from internet coaches and things like that. We did try to prioritize health anyway. Again, I say that except for myself. I mean, I was just on stupid amounts of gear, lying to everybody about it because, I didn't want everybody to know what I was doing. Right. And so and
along with that, I always had blood work done, and
I know. Yeah.
Some of the stuff would make my blood count go up. The hematocrit, hemoglobin. Yeah. So I would donate blood. And then every 8 weeks or so.
Yeah. And that was one of my rules for all of my clients. I'll coach you, but if you're not giving blood, then you're done. I've probably fired 4 or 5 clients because of that.
Yeah.
And the other thing was your JOB is to EAT. And if you can't EAT, you're not doing your JOB, which means I'm not going to be your coach because you're not doing the basic things that I need you to do. And if, as well as I do, eating that year, especially, that was your job.
Yeah. And prior to that, eating was just where I was lacking, why I was not growing.
Yeah. And it really was.
I love to train, but eating, was a weakness.
Yeah. You weren't getting enough. You weren't getting enough food in. So we went and we started doing legs together. Because we were like, even at 60, this is going to be the best way to put quality mass on and on your entire body. And I will say this. I remember when I first took a look at you and saw your legs, I was like, that's where we need the weight.
Yeah.
That's what we need. And how many posing sessions did we have in the locker room looking to see how you were shaping up, getting pictures, comparing pictures to see where you were going. And in that year, by the time we got to the end of that year, you had gained 17 pounds on stage muscle. That was just, I'll never forget that. Because I was like, because honestly, Rick, it even surprised me. because, you know, you think that you can't gain really a good quality amount of muscle, you know, after 40, after 50, after 60. Well, I had already debunked the 40 lie because I was rolling up into the 280s, 290s, you know, getting close to that 300 mark in the off season. And, you know, and then of course, now that I'm over 50, you know, I won my pro card at 50. I gained 25 pounds in 1 year of stage muscle, you know, between one contest cycle as well. So, you know, you can gain the muscle. Now, again, most everybody is going to call us big fat liars, right? They are. Oh, you guys were topping out gear. You were doing 10 grams or whatever.
Not
you know,
even close.
they're going to say that. And no, that's not the case. I was taking far more than you were, but I wasn't even, well, no, that's not true. I was taking far more than you were. I'm not going to go into dosages, but I was, you know, and so that's just where things were. So we looked at 17 pounds of stage muscle that year. And
I would compete at bantamweight, which is up to 143.
Yeah.
But I would step on stage after cutting water is like 136, 138.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so. I remember because I remember looking at you for the first time. And I remember my wife and I having a conversation. I was like, I don't know, man. He's short, but I don't know if we can really add that much muscle now because he's 60 years old. And so, and I did.
Yeah, we sure did.
I had a lot of doubts. Just, you know, I hate to say,
I've maintained it. So,
and you actually have. Yeah. Actually, the other day I had not seen you in how many years now?
Maybe 2
or 3 years.
While,
yeah. So we went back to the gym to Bodyplex. We literally, when we retired in 2019, we hit out. I mean, we were going to this little Anytime Fitness because we just needed out of we needed out.
You're kind of a local celebrity and you go in and everybody comes up to you and wants to ask questions and, you know, interrupt your workout and stuff.
Right.
And so,
well, we didn't hide out for that reason. Honestly, Rick, man, and a lot of people don't know this. I think it's out on the podcast, but you know, we were not doing well. Sandra and I were. We were literally on the verge of divorce. Oh yeah, man. I was a nightmare. I was, and people didn't know it. I mean, I had a drug addiction that nobody knew about. I had an alcohol addiction that nobody knew about, and a female addiction nobody knew about. And I was flirting on social media, things like that. And my wife was. Had it not been for my wife loving me through that, why she did, I don't even know. I mean, honestly, I'd be divorced, you know, and probably Rick would be who knows where at this point. But in 2019, just, you know, like I make it very public, man, I got my life right with the Lord and dude, repented of all that stuff.
What year did you earn your pro card?
18.
18.
Yeah. And I tore my lat off the spine sometime in 18.
You're at that pro level. I mean, you know, and you're at your peak and you're ripped to shreds and you look in the mirror and you're incredible. And then you compete and you win. And then you start slowing down and the body fat starts coming on and you kind of go through a depression.
Yeah.
It's like a ship with no port.
Yeah.
You've had this laser goal. Focus for so long. And then all of a sudden, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And it's like a kind of a depression. You get in a funk.
Did I get into a funk?
I did.
Oh, you do? Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, well, it's true because after the show is over, you know, you're sitting there going, oh my gosh, you know, now where am I going from here?
What's next? Yeah.
Yeah. So like, but for me, the problem, the shows were kind of more keeping me on track in my life.
Yeah.
Because I had an ecstasy problem. You know, I got using ecstasy for fat burning and for everything else. And all of a sudden find out I got an ecstasy problem, you know, and I'm trying to jam it down my wife's throat, you know, and I'm just being very, very open and honest. We started finding out that the bodybuilding world was really rough, man. You know, we were getting invited to wife swapping parties and all kinds of stuff that we never went to. But it was becoming a situation, you know, we were like, okay, you know, we're gaining popularity. people know us. We're traveling to California. We're spending 2 to 3 weeks a week out in California out of a month training high-end clients out there, and, we had clients that were paying us, $10, $12, $14,000 for just a few days. And so, you're in this lifestyle, you're in this traveling, you start to believe your own press reports. You start to think you're something that you're not. Yeah. And you start, and then not only that, Rick, like for me, I'm loaded out on test. My libido levels are so high, I can't even control my own self. Thankfully, we ended up in counseling because, I had to talk to her about things that were not easy to talk about. And she caught me with things that were not easy to talk about. Now, people are going, Jeff, you shouldn't be saying those things. But this channel is all about being real, and the bodybuilding lifestyle, if you're not careful, this life will overtake you and
it sucks you down a drain.
Yeah, it does, into a very, very dark hole. And that's where I was. And I dragged her down with me. Yeah. And people had no clue. I mean, people, we go to the gym, everybody thought we were just great, but we weren't.
Yeah, some circles having Coke parties and Adderall.
Oh, yeah.
And, ecstasy. And
yeah.
It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. It really is. And so we ended up, and we have to tell a couple of stories, and we're going to move on to some other stuff. And I'm going to brag on Rick just for a second, and not just because Rick is here. I've actually bragged on Rick quite a bit because here I was in my 50s. You were in your 60s. We trained with probably the strongest guy I've ever met, Matthias. Yeah. 2 repaired quads. Somehow this dude is squatting again, and I mean, now understand, we took a very controlled timeline with him, made sure that he was at his therapy, all of that stuff.
Very slow recovery.
Yeah. We weren't jamming him. Everything came as he was able to. If I thought something was not there, hey man, let's pull it back. Yeah. And I think you can probably remember times where I would tell him, hey, I think we're good. You're good.
Don't do this last set.
Yeah. Yeah. And
he'd be eager to go. And you say, let's drop this last set.
Yeah, exactly right. But we had gotten to this one day, we were just talking about it. It was actually such a crazy day. When I tell people that I loved working legs. I mean, to me, there is nothing grittier. There is nothing more disgusting. There is nothing more visceral than a hard, I'm going to puke it up leg day. How many times, I mean, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but there were so many times, people are on the verge of puking. I'm like, don't you puke that up. If you do, you swallow it. We don't waste calories here.
You're screaming at us as a coach to do more, one more rep. But many, many times I've seen you on the leg press machine puke it up, swallow it back down.
That's right.
By pushing yourself, which is an incredible. Yeah. Most people hit that wall and, they stop.
Yeah.
But you were able to hit the wall and keep going, and you like.
Yeah. Do you remember that? I have an actual picture of it. I think you're the one who took the picture of it. Of me at Bodyplex after a leg day. And I don't know what happened. I got the cold sweat, and I was in there, and they have this trash can just before the bathroom, and I didn't make it into the bathroom. I was yakking into the trash can, and there's a picture in my phone that either you or somebody sent me, Matthias, one of the guys that we're all training with.
Wasn't me. I don't know.
Where I've got my head inside the trash can, losing my guts, right? And we were this one time, and you got to understand, we were at the point that year where we were finishing off. If you remember, we were finishing the leg workout with 4 sets of 40 on the leg press in different variations on our feet. Yeah, which is mainly because we were targeting quad sweep, for Matthias, because Matthias, with those quads torn like that, the one thing that he really lost was quad sweep. You need a quad. We all, everybody wants more quad sweep. I mean, when I was young, I have pictures when I was young where the quad sweep is just like unbelievable. And then as I got older, I was like, first thing that went, I was like, where's my quad sweep? It's not there, not like it used to be. So, but things are different when you're training. Muscle doesn't come in like it did when you were young, but we were working out. It was me. It was you. We had Matthias and we had Clayton Russell.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, when we did a leg day, we started out with 7 sets of leg curls. Do you remember that? Mm-hmm. 7 sets of leg curls. We always did hamstrings first. Warm them up, get them ready, get as much blood in there. Yeah. Because my philosophy in legs was I want that hamstring as full of blood as I can get it, so that when I'm starting to do my quads, I've already got blood in the area, blood transference is much
lubricated.
Yes. And then blood transference is not far to go, right? Hamstring to the quad. Mm-hmm. And you're right. I've already got, the joints are all warmed up. But it also keeps me from, when I'm coming down in squats and things, or in the leg press, I've got all that blood in there. Those hamstrings would swell and drop so much that it would keep me from, getting too deep. Mm-hmm. I would know where that was. So it kept me from getting too deep. But, and if you out there don't understand that principle, hit me up. We'll explain that to you. Okay. But we were doing hamstrings, and you and I had just finished up. Clayton and Matthias, we had all just finished up because we were round robbing it. You remember that? Man, we were just bang, 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 bang. And so we were trying to use, on a lot of these days, like a giant set type of mentality, where we were all just cycling through each thing. And if you remember, it was like, when you're done, I'm done. When you're done, I'm done. And we just kept banging it, banging it, banging it. And so we had a number of hamstring exercises ready to go. And I would set this up, and I'm like, okay, this is where we go. Doom, 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 doom. And we were banging that hamstring workout. Mm. We got done, and we were standing back at the leg press, and we hadn't even started quads yet, but all of us were sweating. We had just destroyed hamstrings. Looked over, and the 2 young guys, Matthias, the strongest guy I know physically, pound for pound, and Clayton, a young guy, Mr. Georgia.
They went on to win Georgia.
Mr. Georgia, exactly. Both of those guys, Matthias is laying on his back on a bench over in Bodyplex. He's laying on, and he's got his arm up like this. And Clayton is actually on the floor, one leg bent up, the other leg out, and he's on the doing floor. The same thing. He's like, and they're sweating. There's puddles everywhere. We're sweating. And I remember you and I were standing there, and we were like, kind of like looking at each other. And I was like, what? Dude, the old guys are running the new guys, right?
Yeah.
So I remember I looked over at him. I was like, I don't know what you guys are doing, man. I said, we haven't even started quads yet. And so we went, and I remember those guys finally got up. I think, as a matter of fact, if I remember right, I need to get to Matthias or Clayton, but one of them went and threw up that after hamstrings. I thought it was Matthias. But anyway, those 2 guys, they were animals, but that day we had them, we beat them up pretty bad.
Yeah.
And then by the time we got done with quads, man, I think we were all on the verge.
We were all.
Yeah.
We were all.
Yeah. And there were days, guys, out of gas, that you would just be like, dude, I'll be right back. And one of the guys would run off and come back, right?
Yeah.
You all right? Yeah, I'm good. Wiping their mouth. Somebody threw up, But we had a lot of days like that. But we worked so hard, especially in the legs, because the legs just put so much pressure on the entire system. Mm. There's a difference. You can see a difference between guys that really work legs and guys that don't. You know what I mean? I mean, there's just this thickness about guys that, especially that squat, that get a lot of leg work in.
Yeah.
And it's really impressive. So that year, You gained 17 pounds. I remember when we were getting you ready, and we would go in, I believe, before the workout, and we would do a posing session, take a look at you, see where you were. And I was really surprised we were able to retain as much mass for that show. And that show, I believe, you were at Masters Nationals. You went in and you won it.
And I won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was crazy. We were at home, and I remember we're like, Rick, what's going on? You know, because we were just like, what's happening? What's happening? So
yeah, I competed at Masters National 4 times. The first time I was 7th.
Yeah.
The second time I was 4th or 5th. And then when I started training with you, it was 2nd and then first. The 2 years I was with you.
Yeah.
So
that
continued to improve.
Yeah, that was that. Yeah, and that I was going to say the second year, the amount of improvements to me were just as impressive as the first year gaining all that weight. You know, because the second year we had to keep you.
You ruined my reign as a bantamweight.
I know.
Bantamweight is long gone.
Yeah, no, you're never seeing that again. That's like light heavies. You know, light heavies. You know, oh, why don't you? I'll never see light heavy. I mean, it's crazy. We also, and what I was going to say is, I thought actually the second year was more impressive. The year that you actually won it was more impressive because we had to keep you. We were actually having to keep you from gaining a lot
too
of.
Much.
Yeah, because we didn't want you stepping up into the light heavy at that point because I didn't think we had enough time to put that much mass on you to where you would be at the bottom of the class.
Yeah.
So, you know, it was better to keep you towards the top of, you know, or not, it was the middles, right? Not the light heavies, the middle. We didn't want you to step up to the middles. That's right. Not light heavy.
I competed at Universe 1 year and they only had 2 divisions, lightweight, heavyweight.
Yeah.
So I won 3rd in that, but the cutoff was 175 and I was at 155.
Yeah.
So the 2 guys that won were had 20 pounds
right
on me.
There.
Easy.
Yeah. And that was the thing. Like when I was there, you know, I was 254 on stage, and the next guy, the guy that placed second, I think he was 199 or 202 or something like that. So
yeah, it makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. It makes a huge difference when you're that much bigger than somebody and you're just as shredded as they are. Then it you know, it really makes a difference. So let's talk about how many titles have you won at this point? I know you wrote these down. How many?
I've been athletic all my life. I was in gymnastics and wrestling in high school and wrestled in college. Then I got into martial arts, and I've always been a gym rat.
Yeah.
But really just doing stupid things like trying to do a 30-set Arnold workout. Yeah. You know, me weighing about 120, which is ridiculous. Yeah. And then I didn't have the eating down, you know, so that was important. But my first competition, I was working with some trainers at the gym and starting to improve and make gains. And people would come up to me on the street and say, "Hey, man, do you mind if I ask how old you are?
Yeah.
You know, you're looking good." And people would stop me like that. And it's like kind of weird, but I realized, you know, I'm starting to make some gains and look pretty decent. And then some of the trainers asked me, had I ever thought about competing? And my idea of bodybuilding was heavyweight, you know, the Olympia with these 250, 300-pound guys. And, you know, I'm a little guy. So I went to a competition just to watch. And, you know, I found out they had age groups and weight classes and all, kind of like boxing, you know, different weight divisions. And then just randomly, the guy sat next to me. You probably know him. His name's R.D. Noren. He's up in Dalton or Dallas, up in that area. He's competed for a long time. Yeah. But
I may know him by sight.
I just struck up a random conversation with him, you know, and he asked me had I ever thought about competing. He was a competitor in the over 50 group, and so he kind of lit the fire, and I decided to do a competition. And I drove up to North Georgia every Saturday, and he taught me how to pose.
Wow.
And the first competition, I think, was in 2012, the Roman Classic.
Oh, yeah.
up in Dalton.
Yeah, my wife did the Roman Classic and won that, I think, maybe around that time.
That first year I got spanked. I think I placed second in the bantamweight and the men's open bantamweight and third in the Masters over 50.
Yeah.
But it lit that fire. It lit that fire. Man, I was ready for the next one.
Well, and isn't it true? You know, I've had so many guys that come to me over the years when I used to coach. They're like, look, I want to compete and, you know, but I don't know. And I would tell them, look, here's what I want you to do. Let's give it a shot. If you want to do it, let's do it. And they're like, yeah, but I don't. I'm like, you don't have to know what you want to do beyond this show. Mm-hmm. If you want to do one show, let's do the show. And then you're going to find out you either really like it or you hate it, or it's not for you, you know? And really there's kind of no in between. What, you know, once you do it, it's either in your blood or it's not.
Yeah.
And it was in your blood.
2012 was the first one. I went back 2013, the Roman Classic, and placed first in the over 50 and first in the bantamweight. Then 2014, I was the Eastern Seaboard.
Yeah.
And I placed first in the open bantamweight and first in the over 50. And then I placed, let's see, 2014, the Atlantic USA, I placed second in the over 50 and first in the bantamweight, men's open. In the 2015, the Atlantic USA, I won first in the over 50 and first in the open bantamweight. 2015 was the first Georgia, and I placed second in the open bantamweight and second in the over 50 lightweight.
Now, when did you start doing national shows?
2017. Let's see. Let's see. Masters and National. 2016, I placed 7th. 2017, I placed 4th. And I think I worked with you 2018, 2019.
Yeah.
And I placed second. And then 2019, I won the over 60 lightweight at National.
Yep.
And then I did Flex Lewis Classic. I won the over 60 first in that. And then I did 2020 was my first North American, and I placed second. 2021, I was primed and ready to go the day before flying out, and I got COVID.
I remember that.
And so I scratched 2021. Yeah. 2022, I came back North American and won second again. And then this year, I went back to North American and won second again.
Well, at least I can say I took you to a win.
You took me to a Masters national win.
That's right. Yeah. So
very excited. I'll tell you what, I shouldn't say this, but you know, I've had a lot of big events in my life. You know, I've gotten married, bought a house, I bought a business, I've had children, but to be bluntly honest, winning that national title, that's the most thrilling day of my life.
Yeah, it is.
I was so excited. I went backstage, started crying. I called you before I called my wife. We did it. We did it. We did it. I'm crying. I'm sobbing into a towel.
Well, you know, the bad thing is Sandra was over there and she had tears and I'm like, okay, we got to stop. You know?
And then the guy said, hey, come back. You got to do the pose off. Yeah. You know,
we were so excited. It was nuts.
That was thrilling.
And it was so exciting for us because, you know, like I said, in being 100% honest, when we first started, I was like, because I even told my wife, I was like, I think we're setting ourselves up for failure here, you know, because I just didn't know if we were going to be able to put on enough. And then, dude, when you just kept, you know, and that was the one thing we could not cycle you when it, you know, through workouts. I mean, dude, you know, leg workouts. I mean, there were times where you and I were the only ones finishing the workout, and those guys were breaking out, you know. And I was like, but this is the price you pay. And, and I had young guys that could not keep up, on leg days and stuff like that. That would drop out, just like, no, I'm good. And I'm like, dude, this is why you will not win. If you can't pay the price on leg day, you're not going to win. And to me, the leg day tells me everything I need to know about a competitor. Always has. Mm-hmm. And I won't say his name, but he won a Olympia. And we used to train off and on together, me, him, and a couple of other guys. And he would break out of leg day. So it didn't hold true for him.
One exception there.
Yeah, one exception. But he genetically, dude, that guy was just insane. But I won't say his name because, I don't have permission. But we were out of Jacksonville, so that should tell you everything you need to know. But anyway, so
I've always been on the skinny side, the thin side. So it's been hard for me to build muscle. I'm not like one of these guys that has these big full muscle bodies,
Yeah.
So, I mean, that speaks volumes to you training and pushing me and, all the things that we did.
I was actually more amazed.
Then towards the end, you were saying, hey, don't gain too much.
Yeah.
You're not going to make weight.
Yeah, exactly right. I was like, we got to slow you down. And that's why I said the second year was more impressive than the first year because, we had to really walk that tightrope because at that point I was like, dude, this guy just wants to keep growing. I mean, we got to slow this down because I just didn't think we were going to be able to put on enough to get to the top of that next class. And for me, my philosophy was always, I don't want to compete at the bottom of a class. Right. I want to get to the top of that. I don't want to go into the next class. People go, oh, well, but you're going to be super ripped and that. Yeah, but I'm not going to look as big in my estimation. And, now I know there are guys that are lighter, that win at times, out of that class, but I just didn't think we were ready for that.
More commonly, the bigger guys.
More commonly, yes. But I will say this, the most impressive thing that year was the amount of size you put on your legs that year. I was really like, okay, all right, now we're good. So what do you say to the guy out there that's 59, about to turn 60? He thinks his gym days are past or, he's got a little bit of a pooch or whatever, he thinks and society kind of tells him, hey, you know what, go play golf, or don't work out too hard, don't really. What do you say to that guy that's on the verge of giving up?
Well, for one, start slowly.
Yeah.
Don't jump in and try to do crazy workouts.
Yeah. Don't train with me and Rick.
And in business, they say if you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Yeah.
So it's important to keep a workout log to know what you did last week, to know what you're going to do this week, what your goals are. If you did so many reps last week at a certain weight, you know that, and you know what your goals are. The other thing is at that age, just starting out, I would not try to work too heavy. I would work a little bit lighter and spend more time under tension.
Recuperating. Yeah.
Because your joints are just not ready for that shock.
Yeah.
If you haven't been at it year after year, day after day.
So with that guy,
and then the eating clean.
With that guy, I don't want to get into the drug side of it because that's that guy's going to have to make that decision for himself. I mean, and that's not something I want to push here. But for that guy, can he put on muscle? Are you just an anomaly, or can that guy put on muscle?
I'm convinced he can put on muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the right workouts, the right diet.
Yeah.
Staying with it.
Yeah. And even if he's natural, look, at 60, you're probably on TRT anyway. I mean, typically most guys in their 60s, are on TRT, or, they find out if they go get tested, they find out that they need TRT. Now I know as an enhanced athlete, you're very responsible. You get all your blood work done, all of that stuff, but you're on testosterone. And that does make a huge difference for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I got into North America the last 4 years, I was only focusing on that one competition, and I wasn't doing as much gear. And I went to a TRT clinic.
Yeah.
And it was 200 milligrams a test once a week.
Right.
With a B12 shot, and I'd have blood done regularly. I donate blood to keep the hematocrit
right
within.
Yeah, and that's such a great thing, and that is something that we would tell anybody. You know, you need to be given blood every 60 days. I think it's 60 days, right? 60 days, something like that. I used to say 45 days when I was real heavy on gear. I would, and if I had guys that were real heavy on gear, I won't say their names, but guys that were going to nationals, you know, opens and things that were on a lot of gear, I would tell them, hey, you know what, get your blood work done. But, you know, if your blood work is good, you should be given blood about every 45 days just because of the amount of gear you're on. So that is best practice for sure when it comes to that. So what's the future? You play second again this year. What's the future? Do you have it in you for one more run?
My future was to retire this year.
Yeah.
And then I play second for the third time. And I emailed the coach to get evaluation from the show. And he sent me back a message saying that it was so very close between first and second.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, do I give up or do I go one more year? You know, I decided.
That's the carrot dangling.
He dangled it, man. I'm thinking seriously about doing another year.
One more. Which do you know which show you would do?
It would do North American. If I had to do over, I'd do North America, but about a month before I would do a warm up show.
Yeah.
So get as ripped as I can a month out.
Yeah.
And then just get shredded that last month.
Yeah.
The other thing I would do is I would get there and weigh in as absolutely early as I possibly can. You know, I weighed in the night before. And you only have just a short time to carb up and fine tune.
Yep.
So if I was doing it again, I would get there 2 days before and I would weigh in as early as possible.
Right.
And then I've got a couple of days, you know, to fine tune.
Now, let me ask you something. Did you remember the trick that I taught you the night before with vegetable glycerin and the day of? So you still utilize that?
Yes. And I've watched your 2 pros with the creatine and the glycerin.
Yeah.
So I've been doing that.
Yeah. People don't realize, you know, and when I tell people, the year that I won my pro card, Matt's coach, he passed away, young guy. What was his name? Matt
Olson?
No, I don't think it was Matt Olson. It was just a tragedy. He was such a young guy. He had his own, he was real popular, had his own vitamin line and all of that stuff. He was coaching the guy that placed second to me that year. And him and I got into this thing on the internet. You know, he was dogging me and all this stuff. And I told him, I was like, you just wait. I was like, I've got the secret sauce. And, you know, and he was making fun of me and everything on the internet. And he was like, oh, Jeff's going to bring out his secret sauce. And I told him, I was like, you know what? You're this big coach and all this other stuff. And I promise you, you don't even know this. You don't use it.
Yeah, I learned that from you.
Yeah. I was like, you don't even understand what it is or use it. And he didn't. But anyway, Matt Porter. You remember Matt Porter?
Yeah.
I believe it was Matt Porter. Just what a tragedy. He passed away. But him and I were always at each other. And then he was coaching my rival. So he was just like beating me up on the internet. I'm beating him up, you know, and all this other stuff. And I kept, and he would post in these different forums, oh, Jeff's going to get out his secret sauce and all this other stuff.
Making fun of it.
Yeah, making fun of me because he didn't know what I was talking about. But people don't realize that especially the night before a show, we mix that. Should I tell them what we do?
That's up to you.
I mean,
I was going to mention it without giving the details, but that's up to you to reveal your
I'll tell you what,
secret or not.
I'll tell you what. Since you're still utilizing it, I won't do it. But I will say this: the other thing is now the way I carved up and carved people up was a lot different than the way a lot of people carve up because you ate Oreos and cream of rice and dried fruit and a lot of stuff like that, and we never had a problem with spillover with you. And then when we put in that vegetable glycerin the night of, and then the next morning, gives you that beautiful 3D super saran
veins
wrap.
popping.
Yeah, it's really, and it's funny because people are out here probably going to put in the comments, oh, you guys are crazy, all this stuff. That's okay. You just go right ahead, boo-boo, think all you want to, but ask Bo Wise, ask any of those guys, even some of the guys that are bigger names that would come to me for the last 2 weeks who had big name coaches, but they would come and say, hey, what about da 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 da, and we'd kind of help them out. And we use that. I don't know if they use that, but I always felt like coaches are just starving these guys and they're not giving them enough carbs. And so when I would tell people, man, my guys eat Oreos and cream of rice and carrot cake and, all that stuff, they're like, what?
Since you mentioned cream of rice, is there an easy way to cook cream of rice?
Well,
I put it in the microwave for 30 seconds, then I take it out, stir the lumps out.
Yeah.
Cook it another 10 seconds, take it out, stir the lumps out. Yeah. It's a pain in the ass, really, but it's a great product.
Well, the one thing that I did is, we put it in, and of course, I think with you, we had you using. Of course, I used it all the time because it was like a dessert. You get your cream of rice ready in the microwave, and it has a few lumps, but I would just mash them out.
Yeah.
I'd mash them out, stir it up, and then put it back in. But then we would take the sugar-free chocolate syrup. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Put that in there. And then we would put Oreos, crush up Oreos and put it in there. And dude, you want to talk about
pump.
It was so good. Make your tongue slap your brain. But because you haven't eaten, you're not eating a lot of stuff, but then with that. But so you're gonna hit it up again this year. And I want to address one last thing before we go. Okay, we're at 50 minutes here. I want to address one last thing. What do you say to the people? Let's say you go, you win, you get your pro card. You're going to face the same exact thing I did, where people will say you're not legit. You're 60 years old. It's a complimentary pro card. You're 50. It's a complimentary pro card. Now, I will say from my standpoint, it's very easy for me. And even back then, I was very easy to say, hey, guys, you know what? Look, I was a far better bodybuilder back then than I am now. My physique is beat up. I'm busted. My waist had expanded, from problems with my abdomen, things like that. So I didn't have a problem with that. I knew I wasn't going to go to, the Tampa Pro and threaten Nick Walker or somebody. Come on, Nick! You're going down, or something like that. I mean, I knew I wasn't. But at that point, my goal was I wanted to qualify for the Olympia through the Masters, through that. And let's be honest, there were guys who were younger that I beat, in different shows, and people would say, oh, well, we had one client, I can't tell you his name, but actually he was not my client. He was out of the same gym, and he was going to do, I believe, the North Americans, and you might remember this. We won't say the name though. And I asked him, I said, are you doing the Masters? And he said, no, my coach, which if I remember right was Matt Porter. He said, my coach said, that's not legit. I need to do the Open. And I told him, I said, and my wife can attest to this, because I told him, I said, you can't beat me. You're going to go and you think that you're going to just walk into the Masters and just beat everybody. It's not legitimate. I said, I'm 50. You can't beat me, and, I wasn't trying to be proud. I was just trying to give a wake up call. The guys, it's tough. I mean, it's not as easy,
competitive,
because a lot of guys, like I mean, I went into national qualifying shows, won the Masters, won the overall, won the overall Masters, then won the overall show. At a couple of different shows that were national qualifiers, because I'm like, I don't care, man. I got to put it on the line here, and I'm going to go in, and it's all challengers, man. But what do you say to those people who say, oh, and by the way, that guy went to the North Americans that year and was buried. And I remember seeing his face on stage, not just the total shock, but there was like 40 guys up there. And even in the Masters, he was way out of the top. I mean, way out. And I think it was a good eye opener, just because you can win a title over here. Everybody wins a title over here. Everybody up there is good.
Yeah, that's right.
Matter of fact, the first time I did the Universe, I sat backstage and talked to John Meadows. And I've told this story before. John was like, him and I were sitting there talking. We talked about the entire day. And it's just such a nice guy, man. There again, another tragedy. Yeah. But we were talking, and he told me, he said, it should come down between you and me. This is what he told me. And it is 100% verifiable with people. He said, it should come down between you and me. We're standing in line getting ready. And he said, but I would beat you. I was like, I hate that, but he's right. He would have beat me. I mean, I'd only been training for 2 years at that point. I mean, literally I was out of the gym for over 20 years. I had literally only trained for 2 years, and here I am at a national show. And so, and I had overcome that car accident, so I had paralysis on my left side for 18 months. So, I mean, so here I am, I'm standing there at a national show, and he goes, and I would beat you. And I was like, oh, okay. It just irritated me though. But I was like, yeah, okay. But, there was nobody nicer or nobody that could tell you that they were going to beat you and make you feel good about it like John did. Yeah. Hey, Jeff, I'm going to beat you. And I was like, oh, okay.
Up until his death, he was still doing YouTube videos. Yeah. And he'd do leg workouts with guys. And he'd pull his shorts up and flex his quads. It's like his show ready. It's like ripped, deep cuts in his quad.
John was never...
He hadn't competed in I don't know how many years.
Yeah.
But his quads were just ripped.
He was sick, man.
It's phenomenal.
But we were standing there, and he said, I would beat you. He goes, but you're going to place fifth. I said, what? He goes, you're going to place fifth. He said, you see those two guys right there? I said, yeah. He goes, what do you think of them? I was like, I'm better than they are. He goes, they're going to place ahead of you. I said, why? He goes, they've been here longer. Then he pointed this one guy. He said, what do you think about him? I said, he's big, but he's fat. And he was. He had a lot of weight on him. But he could do a backflip. And he goes, he's going to place ahead of you. And I was like, but he's got a lot of fat on him. He goes, doesn't matter.
He's implying politics?
I'm not saying what he's implying. But let me tell you what happened.
Oh, that doesn't happen, does it? Oh,
no,
my.
I know.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So we're sitting there, and they call John out, call me out, call the two guys that he mentioned, and then called the other guy out. John and they rotated around, I think, once or twice and moved me out to fifth place. And I placed exactly where he said I was going to place, and he won.
Oh, it's got to be frustrating.
Now, the crazy thing is, and you remember, I had come and I was ready at the Universe the following year, and I was ready. And I got up on stage, and it was my show. I mean, I knew it was my show. I knew I was going to win. And there was a state judge out of our state that I had done some work for that owed me a bunch of money. And
I remember.
Yeah, he held a vendetta against me. And he was the one who ripped me off of like $14,000. And him and another judge. And I remember getting up there, and he looked at me, and he went just like this. He went,
oh, crap.
Like that. He gave me the gun. And I was like, oh, no, I placed second. Good. Matter of fact, it was so shocking that the guy who placed ahead of me, when they called my number or they called him, and then I had to look down at my number. I was like, no way. And of course, everybody started screaming, and cursing and stuff like that. And he jumps up and down. I'll never forget. He's jumping up and down. He's like, "Oh my God, I beat him. I beat him." And he goes running off the stage and he hugs a friend of mine out of New York. He's like, "Yeah, I won. I beat him." And I'm like, I have never felt so bad in all my life. But then I don't know if you remember or not, but I took a year off. I was obsessed. I took a year off and I gained 25 pounds of stage muscle in that 1 year. 25 pounds, not 25 pounds total, 25 pounds heavier on stage the next time.
Yeah.
And I was so aggravated. But anyway, okay. So I went the long way around and I apologize. My question is back to you again. If you win your pro card, what do you say to those people? How does that make you feel with all of the work and all of that stuff you put in? What do you say to those people?
The goal for me is not to win a pro card. So if that happens, great.
Yeah.
But that's not really my goal. My goal is to improve every year. As long as I can continue to improve and my body holds up, I'm happy.
Right.
So, if I won a pro card and never competed in a pro show, that wouldn't matter at all. And I wouldn't really care what people think.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that has to be the mentality, because as a matter of fact, for me, when I got my card, then I was really out to prove that I belonged. And truthfully for me, like I said, you don't belong on stage at 51 years old, in an open. You're going to place dead last or pretty close. Yeah. You just hope somebody comes in worse shape than you.
I think I've made improvement the last 3 years.
Yeah.
You can see it in pictures.
Yeah.
But I'm chasing age working against me.
Yeah.
And to be honest, getting up at 5:30 every morning and doing cardio just sucks.
Yeah.
It's like I haven't really minded it up until this year.
Yeah.
I mean, mentally, it sucked. It's
drain.
really hard to do that and then get ready and then work a 9-hour workday.
Yeah.
A lot of guys at my age are retired, and they get up and piddle around.
Now tell everybody what you do for a living.
I'm a dentist.
Yeah.
I run a full practice.
Yeah.
We've got 5 dentists, and I start at 8 o'clock and work till 6 o'clock, and I'm hopping all day long, boom, 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 and so and then I right after work I eat a meal and then go to the gym, and another hour and a half for 2 hours. So it's 8:30 before I get home.
Yeah. So guys, there is no excuse.
And then cardio again.
Yeah. Well, this is what I'm saying. There is no excuse. Rick runs a business. He does his cardio. He gets his workout in. It's 8:30 at night. I don't care if you're 60, 50, or 70. You can do this. Rick is living proof. Rick, thank you for coming in, dude.
I enjoyed it.
Awesome thing. We're going to keep up with you.
You were going to show some photos, but you ran.
Yeah, the photos will be on the green screen behind us in final edit. So everybody will see all the photos. Yeah. Okay. So any videos you have, we'll put them up too. We'll just take the sound out of it and it'll all go up on this. It looks amazing. So it'll look really good. So we'll have lots of photos.
It's a lot of fun. Enjoy it.
Yeah. Thank you. So, hey guys, again, thank you for coming in. This is Impact.
The Impact.